Okay, here we go. Our ruby with short graduation. So I'll section off the sides, top, and I'll begin this haircut in the back. So from the back area, comb out a section that runs from the crown all the way into the nape. And then from here, start cutting in your graduation. Now the amount of graduation that you cut determines on the overall fullness that you want to see, the type of movement, and of course, the protrusion of the occipital bone. Okay, now let's get into the effective ways of cutting in this graduation to the back. Now one, you want to be standing directly in front of what you're cutting. Two, make sure your elbows, fingers, comb, sections, they're all parallel. Three, make sure that you're cutting square. So by cutting square graduation through the back, you're building up length as you work towards those corners on each side. If you find that the amount of hair that you're cutting is about the same, it's quite consistent, you may be cutting round, so just be aware of that. And as you work like below the occipital bone area, you may find it at times quite challenging to get your fingers in there at the right angle. So sometimes you'll have to adjust your body and turn more like diagonal, or you can also adjust the client's head, especially around this nape area. The tighter the graduation oftentimes is, that shoulder will get in the way of your elbows if your elbows and shears are aligned. So just be aware of these key components and it'll up your game significantly. And always work with super clean and manageable sections. Okay, and keep in mind also, the way you stroke the hair is really important. You have to make sure that as you're cutting the hair, you're always combing the hair super clean from roots to ends. Like a standard for super clean would be that the hair that you just comb is parallel to the teeth of your comb. Especially when you're working with very thick hair, like Ruby's hair's thickness is a bit off the chart. So if I were to use like gigantic sections, or if with each section I comb the hair a little bit off, those little errors as I progress throughout the haircut, they'll multiply and just each section will become more and more challenging. As I reach the round of the head, notice that I'm over directing back because again, my intention through the rear area is to go in and cut square graduation. So again, I'm building up this corner where the head rounds. And then as you cross-check, when you cross-check, you should see a square shape. Okay, now for the opposite side, I'll approach it in the exact same manner. The only minute adaptations is my body position. I'll move slightly more to the left so my body position is between the shoulder and the occipital bone. And again, make sure you're working with super clean sections. Make sure that you can always see that guideline. If that guideline is not evident, if it's not really clear, I really wouldn't recommend cutting the hair at that point. Because if you do, chances are you'll be destroying your guideline or you're cutting off of your guideline. It may not be easy at times to really get in there and cut the hair where it needs to be cut following an exact guideline, but this is essential. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. But again, you always have to have a super clean guideline. Otherwise, that haircut will grow out terribly and it'll affect your retention and your cash flow. Now, as I'm working through the left side below the occipital bone, it's really hard to get my fingers in there. So I'll pull the hair out straight, and then once I have it out straight, I see that guide, I'll hold the hair really tight between my fingers, and then I can kind of pivot a little bit just to allow my shoulders, shears, all to be the same shape and get in there to cut that hair. Now again, as the hair rounds, I'll be building up my corner because we're cutting square graduation through the back. Fingers high, elbows low. All my parallels are in check. My parallels being in check are like my fingers, elbows, combs, shears. I need those 4 key elements to be parallel and in check, and they will greatly assist me with this haircut. Always working with small, manageable sections. Constantly comb the hair to natural fall, make visual assessments. And here I just took one extra section. This section actually belongs to that left side, but I'll just blend it in anyways. So again, combing super clean. And also watch your stroke count. You don't want to comb that section out too many times because one, it'll increase your margin of error. Two, it'll make you exhausted. Three, you're wasting time. Now I'm just going back and I'm cleaning out that outline. I clean the outline after the blow dry, but I prefer cleaning it right away because aesthetically it looks stronger. And when I'm cutting, my eyes pick up on all these small details. So if the outline's kind of fuzzy and messy, it'll affect my overall haircut because when my eyes are looking at not too attractive stuff, it kind of influences my feeling and my inspiration and stuff. So I always prefer to clean out outlines whenever possible and work in a super clean and excellent manner. So now that we begin on the sides, on the right side, I'm combing that hair straight out and I'm again cutting in this graduation. It's the same angle that exists through the back. And my sections through the right side are slightly diagonal. And again, I'm combing the hair back onto the previous, following that guideline, watching the stroke count. Again, we don't want to comb out this section too many times. And as I comb the hair, I like to have my fingers follow my comb because my comb won't deviate, it won't change its shape. So it's a strong standard just to have my fingers follow the comb, as opposed to a lot of cutters, they have their comb get pushed around by the fingers, and that will leave you open to so many minor errors. And as I approach the side, I'm standing directly in front of the section that I'm cutting. So as I move forward, my body with each section, I take a small step towards the front. So that way I know my body position is always in line with my section. And I do this because again, it will give me the greatest amount of control. And when you're working on super thick hair, you always have to have a heightened sense of awareness and always be looking out for errors, because the thicker the hair, the more challenging it is to cut. And when you do make a mistake, which you will, the sooner you find out about that mistake, the better, because then you can just go back and knock it down and then there is no error. And just checking around notice how the hair around the hairline is a little bit less dense, and the hair around the ears is slightly, shows this awkward growth pattern. So I have to take this area with less tension just to accommodate for that lack of density, and there's a little bit of an awkward growth pattern. And that final section, again, I'll be using even less tension. So notice if you're using too much tension, you'll see that scalp area pull out. So I'll just comb it out nice and smooth, and I'll ease up on the tension right before my shears start to close, so that I'll let my guideline fall into place organically. Natural fall, I'll make visual assessments, and then for here I'll go and I'm cutting in a super clean square line. So when you're cutting these clean square lines, make sure, one, that your eyes are exactly in front of what you're cutting. Two, that you're working just with the tips of your shears, because the details exist with the tips of the shears. If my angle is a bit off, then the line that I cut will be off. Okay, so now for the left side, the exact same technique. I'm combing the hair straight out and I'm working off my guideline through the sides. I'm controlling my stroke count. So for that section, I just broke it into two pieces. I comb it out twice and I hit it. So it's like calm, cool, collected. I highly recommend throughout every single haircut, throughout the rest of your career, that prior to combing out a section, that you play it in your mind once. And once you see everything happening in your mind, and then from there go and execute it. This is part of this manifestation that you can actually kick into your technical work, and you'll find that you cut better, faster, smoother, cleaner, and more amazing. You can remember, with each section, Through the side, you actually move forward. And through the left side, I'm not right in front of what I'm cutting just because I need to shoot video. So I'm slightly forward, but I still understand where my body position should be and where my fingers should be aligned at. And just always, if when in doubt, just go back and cross check. Just make sure that the shape is constantly being cut square. If you find yourself off, it's always better to go long than short, because we can always take long hair shorter. We just can't make shorter hair long. So it's always to be safe than sorry. And slightly less tension on this final section. Okay, again, and just going back in and cutting this super square line through the sides. So those sideburns will be knocked down. And just working with the tips of my shears, I just make sure that the tips of my shears are at the angle that I intend to cut. And just right behind the ear, I like to hold the ear down. I don't like my shears tapping ears because it doesn't feel comfortable. And it's not good to cut off the ears. Okay, just connecting the back, just working on that clean line. Now for the top area, building up my weight, so I'll over direct every section down onto the shape that exists throughout the sides and the back. So consistent over direction, and here I'm standing just slightly in front of what I'm cutting, because at this body position it allows me to get my fingers, elbows, shears all lined up to execute the cut through the top even that much better. As you work through the top, pay super close attention to your over direction. You need to be combing this hair straight out. So straight out means, i.e., like the hair that you just combed is parallel to the teeth of your comb. If you're over directing the hair too far forward or too far back, you'll be working off your guideline and it's not the shape that you intended, because again, if the sides would cut perfectly, your guideline would be a square line. So just like make sure you're always on your guideline, and you'll be okay throughout the top portion of this cut. Okay, now through the right side of the top, we'll approach it in the exact same manner. So notice this section is quite large. So this section I'll be breaking down in probably 2 to 3 smaller, more manageable sections. Just make sure each area that you're working on, you're combing the hair exactly to where that guideline sets. Pay aware of your over direction. Make sure you're combing the hair super clean from roots to the ends. Comb the hair to natural fall. Make visual assessments. And the next section will be cut in the exact same manner. And remember, these sections are quite large, so you'll have to go in and break them down. And I'm also connecting them through the back. Okay, my over direction is, my elevation is a bit low because I want to build in that heaviness. And that's where the weight line sits. Like as I cut the back, I was elevating the hair quite high, but then when it falls naturally, it'll sit at that point of elevation. So again, working the next section from the back all the way to the front, breaking down this gigantic section into smaller, more manageable. Smaller sections means more details. If I were to take this entire section in like 1 or 2 shots, you know that line would be totally off. Now I'm just wasting my time, and you're just reinforcing a bad habit. So take your time and do it right. So again, starting from the back. So notice how like this top portion of the hair and towards the back of this section, it incorporates the distribution of the hair is quite large. So that's why I connect it from the back and then I'll work it forward. Just to take into consideration at that crown, that hair distribution is quite intense. Okay, and for the blow dry, I'll just go in and I'll flat wrap the hair. I may leaf it a bit through the front area, but I'd rather just like flat wrap it, because I know the look that I can get through flat wrapping, my client can go home and mimic that shape on her own. So again, just like pushing the hair in lots of different directions, just removing moisture, pushing in direction when you push the hair in lots of different directions, you encourage a tremendous amount of movement. And movement is beautiful. Hair that just sits there rigid isn't as beautiful. Okay, so now that the hair is dry, I'll just go back and I'll technically cross-check and refine my shape. Here, I really don't want to remove my shape. I would just want to remove some of that heaviness. Now remember, especially through the top portion of this haircut, everything was over-directed down. So I know I'll have a lot of heaviness into there. So I'd rather, in this instance, to go heavy, because once the hair is dry, I can make it less heavy, and then I can contour, fine-tune it to the way the hair will actually fall naturally. When the hair is wet, I really wouldn't recommend going in and texturizing, because that's not the natural aesthetic that your client will be wearing every day. And as I remove the weight, I'm working in like shadows, and I like to texturize the hair to the point where I can comb the hair smooth and comfortably from the roots to the ends. That's a really good indicator that enough is enough. You've textured that section to the point where it's all good, right? Because you don't want to go in there and over texture. So again, working in shadows, and you're looking for an even distribution of that weight. I'm just going with some scissor of a comb. I'm really not going shorter. I'm just taking down some of those corners, because the hair, again, her hair is super thick, and this is what it does naturally. So now that I cut it, after I cut it wet, I have to go back and just refine the shape. So I'm not really going shorter. I want to scissor of a combing to get it cleaner. And through the top area, I'll just work in a big section. I'll just remove that heavy corner that I built on both sides. So this bias heaviness, I'll just go in and chip into it a bit more so it falls softer. And now for the fringe, I don't want to go too crazy short. She already has the shorter length, so I'm just going back in there, and I'm just like cleaning up that line. I'm cutting it slightly curved, and I'm connecting in the sides. So I'll go from like curved, from down to high, and then from high back to down. Because and here you have to be really careful about cowlicks in the fringe area. If there's a massive cowlick there, you really, really want to give it a lot of TLC and work those lengths more carefully. And if anything, keep it longer than shorter. Okay, and there we have it, our ruby, our square graduation. Enjoy.